Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream. It is Thursday, September 10th, 2020, and as you know by now, perhaps, every Tuesday and Thursday, me, David Menzies, and my lovely co-host, Sheila, the she-devil Gun Reed, we fill in for the big boss man himself, Ezra Levent, who is in this position every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But he's working so hard, he needs some time off. And I adore this hour with Sheila Gun Reed. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, David. You know what? I hope Ezra's not listening, but it's hard to believe we get paid to do this. Like we get to hang out with each other and sort of shoot the breeze with all of our live chatters. But, talk about things that we would talk about anyway, that interest us, like the news of the day. And there's news breaking just as we came on air about Bill Morneau. But before we get to that,
yes,
because I'm going to do my best to keep us on track, which, I mean, every day I fail. I know that's my job on the show, but every day I fail. What we're doing here. So as you pointed out, this is, you and I host on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Ezra's a busy man. He writes books. He's got a company to run. Can you do me a favor and quit fussing with your shirt? It's making me go deaf. And I can't even imagine what everybody at home is experiencing. Just quit fussing. But besides interacting with each other, which is fun, even when I'm scolding you, gives our live chatters a chance to interact with each other. Also, in the very vigorous live chat, there's like friendships forming in there and business deals happening, but it also gives people a chance to support the work we do here at Rebel News because we are fiercely independent, which means we will never, ever take a dime from any government, especially anybody we're trying to hold accountable on behalf of the people. So if you'd like to support us, you can do something called a super chat. It's at the bottom of the live chat. There's a little $sign. Just click it. You could throw some money in there. YouTube takes some. It's their platform, whatever. But we get the majority of it. And it's a great way to maybe sometimes get the show back on track. If David and I are wandering off into our love of 80s and early 90s wrestling, you can sort of redirect our attention. Or if you'd like to get the show off track by asking us a question about something ridiculous, wrestling, pop culture, whatever, you can do that too. It's really your show. If you could put a question in there, a comment in there, put a topic on our radar, we'll see it and we'll read it. It'll append your comment to the top of the screen, and super producer Justin will send it to me in a message because the chat moves so fast, and we'll read it on air. And if it's a question, we'll do our best to address it.
And Sheila, I just want to address quickly something you said earlier on, that we have so much fun in this hour, it's almost like you can't believe we're being paid for it. And in the bigger picture, what I tell the young uns, it's not like I'm some mentor or anything, but this is what I tell younger people who are still in school. And it's not always attainable, but I always tell them, if you can pursue something that is your passion and you eventually get employed in a job where you love what it is you're doing, that you almost say that, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. I love this job. To me, Sheila, that is heaven on earth, because there are so many people that just go to work because they have to. And I'm not diminishing that, right? You got to pay the bills, and I have total respect. But if you can find a career that you enjoy pursuing, like I said, like you said earlier, it's like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for that. And I think I speak for all the rebels here, because we have an inherent passion, don't we, to bring the other side of the story to our viewers. When we get our feedback from the viewers, it's so humbling. It honors us so much. And it's like, it's almost as though the boss isn't watching this, is he? If we couldn't be paid, no, I won't say that. But we're so happy to be paid to do what it is we love to do. And like I said, I think I'm speaking for the entire team here, Sheila.
Yeah, definitely. I come from not a journalistic background. I was just, like a mom just giving her on the internet, digging into the backgrounds of the NDP, the newly elected NDP MLAs in Alberta. And that's something I did before I worked for Rebel News, and something I did after I worked for Rebel News. It would be something that I would be doing anyway. And I'm really just grateful for the opportunity to have been able to turn my passion for accountability into a career. And I'm really grateful for our viewers at home who support the work that we do here, because I think it's really meaningful.
And you're so good, Sheila. You are a natural talent. You're like a Wayne Gretzky. And, you didn't go to journalism school. You never,
thank God.
Ezra discovered you, and, you are the best. So, yeah, and Mr. Producer just whispered in my ear, she's so much better than you, who did go to journalism school. So I'll plead the fifth on that one, even though we don't have the Fifth Amendment. But
as much as this is the mutual appreciation show, maybe we should get to the news of the day.
Yes.
Because I think that's why everybody tuned in.
And of course, the news of the day is, I'm bittersweet about this announcement. It is about the WE charity wrapping up its Canadian and UK operations, Sheila. And I say bittersweet because, don't get me wrong, I think these Kielburger brothers are a couple of the biggest shysters going. I mean, they came up with a charity that I believe is really a real estate development company. And I don't know if we have footage of that. Earlier last month, we took a little tour around the Queen and Berkeley streets of Toronto, where the WE people, and that's, by the way, the home of the $30 million WE headquarters. And in a sort of an L-shaped pattern, they're buying up all the little properties there, most of which are vacant, which doesn't make any sense, Sheila. If you're wanting to return some money to the charity, why not rent them out? This is prime real estate on Queen Street and Berkeley Street. But
sell them.
But that's the thing. I think that is a real estate play, because it's, with the exception of one property, it's all on one block. And I think it's a future knockdown, and they put up condo or office towers. That's my particular, shall we run a little bit of that, Justin, or just, okay then. So here I am down on Queen.
Accessibility certification, I guess good housekeeping seal of approval. It's to show that this is a accessible building. Not really all that accessible these days, though, is it? It's in 24-hour lockdown, and apparently there is not a single soul in this $30 million heritage building. In any event, let's walk along Queen Street and see what the other Kielburger property holdings are. Okay, we're just about 10 paces away from the flagship heritage building, valued at $30 million. This is 331 Queen Street East. It is valued at $2.7 million. Again, you can see there is nobody home, just a no trespassing 24-hour operation guard on duty sign, and a 1984 Big Brother-ish smile, you are on video camera sign. And right next door to 331, we have 329 Queen Street East. Again, nobody's here. It's in lockdown mode, and it has a no trespassing sign and a guard on 24-hour notice. Boy, it's...
So you get the idea, folks. First of all, what's egregious about that, Sheila, is imagine you are a person, even a child, and children have donated to the WE charity.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking that this money is going to a third world nation to help the lives of other children. And meanwhile, the Kielburgers are buying up all that real estate. Like I said, they don't care about these little ma and pa type buildings on Queen and Berkeley. This is, I think, a future knockdown project to further enrich themselves. Just despicable. But what I'm getting at is that how I feel bad about this, Sheila, is those employees, and we were talking about earlier, try to get a job you love to do. Those employees at WE who genuinely signed up to think they were doing charitable work, and, they're working, they got to pay bills too, and they weren't aware of all these shenanigans, and they're going to lose their jobs because of this scandal. And these Kielburger brothers have the audacity to blame two things: COVID-19 and the media for getting the narrative wrong. Can you imagine the chutzpah of these two brothers, Sheila?
These two are just so full of baloney. I pulled up the National Post story. on them, and I was reading it before we came on air. The quotes they give are so outrageous when you realize that I would suggest the Canada Student Service Grant was created, this $1 billion program was created as a bailout program, not for students, but for these two. Because really that's what it's all about. Because once they don't have that program, they have to close up shop. It was a bailout for them. This $1 billion program was created specifically for them to administer these scammers.
Yeah.
This is their direct quote. COVID-19 disrupted every aspect of our work. Oh, yeah? Me too, but I'm still working. The fallout from Canada's Student Service Grant has placed us as a charity in the middle of political battles and misinformation that we are ill-equipped to fight. The financial math for the charity's future is clear. So hang on for a second here. The bought and paid for media, Trudeau's bought and paid for media, are publishing misinformation about Trudeau's friends? Or is it just so bad that there's no possible way that the turd polishers in the mainstream media can fix this for them? Because that's what really this is about. They were initially paid $30 million to run that $1 billion program. And that was in the beginning of spring. And it was going up to, like, they were given $30 million before they did a damn thing. And it was going up to over $40 million to administer the program. And they didn't do a thing. And it has taken them until, I think, just last week to give the money back. What were they doing with that money? And why couldn't they give it back if you didn't do anything with it? Just give it back. But it took them all summer to give it back. And they're blaming misinformation. No, it's information.
Yeah.
Misinformation is not information you don't like.
And Sheila, look who was on that gravy train too. Sophie Trudeau getting paid. Trudeau's mother, Margaret. And I mean, I think how ridiculous that is when you go to these WE events and they're filled with children, right?
Margaret Trudeau.
I mean, does that not scream cutting edge cool to you, Margaret Trudeau? And
Sorry,
of course,
no, you're saying it wrong, David. Yeah. It's Margaret Sinclair Trudeau Kemper Sinclair Trudeau, because having that name Trudeau is money in the bank.
Oh,
and
it sure is. And then, of course, the ex-finance minister, Bill Morneau, Sheila, who is one estimation of his personal wealth is over $50 million. I think it's probably higher than that, to tell you the truth. And him taking trips on the house from a charity. I mean, like, again, it is the sheer unmitigated gall of entitled rich people milking a charity for their own benefit. And these two doorknobs have the audacity to blame a global pandemic and the media getting it wrong. And by the way, I saw a little clip of CTV's Lisa Laflamme interviewing them, and one of the Kielburger brothers were saying it was completely transparent. It was there was two separate we corporations. One was our parents investing in real estate. No, it wasn't. It was anything but transparent, Sheila. When you go through the forensic accounting, it is so confusing. It is as transparent as a block of granite, and purposefully so. So sometimes you don't know, are we talking the WE Global Charity Learning Center, the WE Charity, the WE Real Estate?
Me to WE?
Yeah, WE is in every name. It is completely confusing, even to people in accounting. So they're still playing that card as sort of, this is why, this is how they're basing their blame of the media, because it was so simple, even an idiot could understand the corporate structure of WE. No, I'm sorry, even people in finance were confused by how that was set up, and it was purposely done so, Sheila.
Well, and I think there's more at play here, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I sound like more and more like one every single day. If there weren't so many conspiracies, I wouldn't theorize about them. But it also says that WE plans to lay off 115 Canadian staff. Oh, I wonder if Bill Morneau's daughter's getting laid off. Maybe she can land a job at the family curly fry business. Anyways, plans to lay off 115 staff and sell all of its property in Canada. So Toronto real estate developers, you might get something at fire sale price in the coming months, including its landmark $15 million global learning center in downtown Toronto, which opened in 2017. Now, what's important here is that they are just closing their Canadian operations.
Yeah.
They're not closing any of the other operations. I think they're
Aren't
liquidating.
they closing the UK operations too, Sheila, or did I get some misinformation there?
I don't know.
But, sorry,
they're
but
canceling
carry on.
D-Day event. Oh, it's a heartbreaking decision, they say. I'll keep reading, but
and by the way, Sheila, just to get the finances correct, that $15 million global learning center, that might have been the price they paid for it, but they sunk in an additional $15 million in renovations and upgrades to make that property the appraised value now at $30 million.
Yeah,
so not even telling the truth about that.
These two should have their own real estate flipping show, because that's really how they're making money. To answer your question about the UK operations, WE's operations in Britain and the US will not immediately be affected.
Oh.
Neither will its, of course, for-profit affiliate Me2We, which makes money through leadership courses, retail sales, and those travel programs that Bill Morneau was entangled in. These guys are closing their Canadian operations, I don't think because they don't have the money, because they could sell a couple downtown Toronto properties and make up the difference of the $43 million they didn't get from administering Trudeau's program created just for them. I think they're moving their money out of the country to hide it because there's more. There's more coming, because I think that's why just close Canada. Why close Canada? When you are Canadian, you started as a Canadian-based charity. Why are you closing Canada but yet keeping your U.S. operations open and your UK operations? You're liquidating all your Canadian assets because you're involved in what looks like hinky, possibly criminal activity in Canada, and you just want to move everything offshore. I think that's what's happening here.
There's that. And also, the devil, as always, Sheila, is in the details. The sentence you wrote, not immediately closing. So that does not mean not ever. And, even some of the names of these subsidiaries, like when you said Me2We, I just find it so perversely amusing. Earlier in the show, you were talking about your love of 80s wrestling. And I when I hear some of the names of these we outlets, it's almost like George the Animal Steele that was portrayed as an imbecile with an incredibly limited vocabulary, even though he was really a teacher in Michigan before he became a wrestler. But it's like, remember his doll Mine? It's almost like mine, me, to we. It's like, where do they come up with these names, Sheila?
They're so simple, yet so confusing. I think that's the purpose of it. They've canceled the We Day activities. So I guess, I don't know, Trudeau's family might have to get a job.
Now that's funny.
Yeah, and 7,000 schools across the country are going to have this garbage purged from the curriculum, which I can't see a downside to.
You know what? That's a very good point, because I heard when they were doing their farewell, I guess it was to present themselves as these benevolent angels, even though they're shutting down the Canadian operations, but they would put the We propaganda online for free for all schools to continue to use. No thanks. Just don't let that door with the maple leaf flag hit your arses on the way out. Just leave already and take your curriculum with you.
Well, what do you mean free? How many times do we have to pay for this garbage over and over again? I found all those sole source contracts that were just under the reporting, or under where they have to go to open tender. And the most ridiculous places, like the public health agency was hiring We for God only knows what. And the public, I think it was a public sector school. So the people who train the bureaucrats to be bureaucrats, they hired We to do, again, God only knows what. And the contract was sole sourced, as all We contracts are, just under that reporting amount. So we've paid for these programs, these benevolent benefactors were going to give to us for free. David, my God, can someone help you with your microphone? It's finally here.
Is it dangling again? Sorry.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
No, and, Sheila, another demographic I feel sorry for, I mentioned, the rank and file employees who were just doing a job and thought they were doing charitable work, is other charities themselves. During this pandemic, charities have been hammered. And I'm talking about legitimate charities. And I think there might be a critical mass of people that read about the WE scandal, see where the money is really going to, such as a real estate development play and political cronies, and they go, I can't trust to give my hard-earned money away. I mean, if I give 50 or $100 to charity ABC, is it really going to a charitable cause? And especially having it happen, like I said, during this time of the pandemic when they're already getting slaughtered, the timing couldn't be worse.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but Trudeau just spent the last, 5 years screwing over actual charities. He, through his attestation to liberal values around gender theory and transgenderism and gay rights and abortion, he forced religious charities to sign that so that they could qualify for the Canada Student Employment Grant Program that would give money to actual charities who were incidentally not liberal linked to do actual charitable things, to hire summer students to do that. So like feeding the homeless or having a summer camp that offers inner city kids a chance to spend the summer outside of the city, outside of Toronto, which is turning into Mogadishu North. Because
I have a personal anecdote like about that, which I will save for later, but carry on.
It's looking more and more like a failed state from the outside. It's just gang violence and shootings and terrible stuff. I'm sure it's nice, though. I'm sure the weather's nice.
Well, you could say it's going to the dogs. Little inside joke there. Okay, go ahead, Sheila.
And so Trudeau screwed over all these actual charities. Some of them actually had to close down their charitable operations, their summer camps and stuff like that. I know that a church camp out here had to close because they would not sign that attestation because it violated their religious freedom. So all these little charities who were doing good work and getting this benefit to hire summer students to do actual charity, they were screwed over for 5 years so that they can turn around and watch Trudeau give this fake charity real estate company $43 million in bailout. And what was the charitable work that they were really doing? Stuff in other countries, I guess. I'm not all that clear about what they're actually doing in other countries. And employing Trudeau's mom and brother to say things to kids. And kids, I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have one that's almost 12. I've got a almost 22-year-old son. The last thing that they would get excited about is a speech from Margaret Sinclair Trudeau, Sinclair Kemper Trudeau. I can't even imagine.
And Sheila, I think the big picture, which we'll get some clarity on in the months ahead, maybe spring of 2021, does this scandal finally stick to the Trudeau Liberals? I mean, is this something that has the critical mass to bring this government down? Because it's so rotten, it's so festering. There's so many conflicts of interest and all the angles that you just did an inventory on. You would think that, I can only imagine if a conservative government had been in this kind of, a swamp. So that's my question. Or is this going to be yet another thing that fails to stick to the Teflon of our Prime Minister?
I guess it really is up to the new Conservative leader, Erin O'Toole, for at least the first part of this scandal, and maybe even the first 2/3 of the scandal. Conservatives were kind of asleep at the switch. The outrage was definitely there amongst the Conservative rank and file, but the leadership was in the middle of an election campaign within the party. for the leadership of the party. And so I think from the top down, it looked very disorganized. Pierre Poilievre has been amazing on it, but he isn't really in a position of leadership. We didn't have, the leader of the party coming out and hammering and hammering and hammering this home every single day. Will that change? Gosh, I hope so.
I think Aaron O'Toole came out of the gates pretty strong, but the other day when he made a commitment to the Paris climate change emissions, I know we're off topic here, but that to me is a stumble. That seems to be more of a kind of a sheerism of cozying up to the mean girls in the media party more than anything else, because especially for Sheila, for you and your friends who live in Alberta, that's a kick in the groin, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you don't win as a Conservative Party leader in this country without Alberta. Yeah. So do not take us for granted. Yeah. When they say that we are going to commit to meeting our Paris targets, that means you are going to commit to limiting Alberta's recovery. Yeah. That's what that means. That's absolutely what that means. And there was a strong sentiment within this recent Conservative leadership race against the United Nations. There was growing United Nations skepticism. And I say that's a very mainstream Conservative value, because Conservatives believe in sovereignty of the individual. And, if you are actively conceding your company or your country's economic growth to these United Nations targets set somewhere in Paris by not you, you're conceding your sovereignty. And I would suggest that Conservatives reject that.
So what is his motivation, in your opinion, Sheila, for him making that statement?
Oh, he wants to please Eastern voters, Trudeau voters, I guess. He wants to bring some of them over, and he's going to alienate a bunch of Conservatives. Oh, boy. I guess he's playing the Conservatives are going to vote for me anyway. So why don't I just move a little bit to the left and see if I can get some business-minded liberals over, but they're not going to come. We've played that game 100 times. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that game played out so brilliantly last year, didn't it? For the Sheila. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Anyways, I imagine by the look on your face, you have some super chats.
Yes. Justin whispered in my ear to tell me to get to them.
Do you love it when Justin whispers in your ear? He always yells in my ear.
You know what? It's better Justin than you whispering in my ear. We've got JK gives us $5. Morning from Alberta. Antifa is starting the Portland wildfires. Civil war is here. I think it's just poor forest management in these Democrat states. It's the culmination of people saying, leave the forest alone. Let the forest do what it will do, because that's the way Mother Gaia wants it. Well, yeah, but the problem is forests do burn. If you leave all the deadfall in there, you don't clear it away, you don't, do rotational logging and all the things that environmentalists hate, forests burn. That's how they rejuvenate. So if you want to let a forest do what it does, it's going to burn. But the problem is people have houses in there. So you do need to do proper forest management, and that doesn't happen in places like California and other places. Connie,
and if it's a Democrat district, Sheila, it's Trump to blame.
Yeah, Trump. It's like Trump is driving through the district throwing cigarette butts out the window. Like, that's how they think. Adam Clark gives us $6.99. As much as I love you guys, is it possible to get Tamara on the show someday? I'm probably her biggest fan. Well, Adam, can I tell you that Tamara was on my show, The Gun Show. That's my paywalled show. It's out every Wednesday, but it's the internet. You can listen whenever you want. 2 weeks ago, like 2 Wednesdays ago, so not yesterday, but Wednesday before, Tamara was my guest, because I thought, hey, I got a show. Nobody tells me what to talk about on the show. Let's get Tamara on and get to know her a little better, myself, and I guess the viewer too. So if you want to see my paywalled show, just go to rebelnews.com/subscribe. It's only $8 a month to get access to our paywall content. David's got a really great, fun show that I haven't been on in a while, and I'm not going to take that personally. And Ezra's nightly Ezra Levant show. It's completely worth the price of admission. It's cheaper than Netflix.
Well,
and we're not going to show you child porn like that Cuties show.
Well, you're fueling my ambition, Sheila, for a spin-off show. We've got you, we've got Tamara, we've got Drea. Drea and Tamara are two newest rebels, and they're doing fantastic work. And I just have this dream of a spin-off show called Menzoid's Angels. How about that? Where, like, I dispatch the three of you. Justin's yelling in my ear again. We better move on.
Exactly. Connie Buffone gives us $10. My favorite hour of the day. Thank you, Sheila and David. You know what it is? Sometimes my favorite hour of the day, too. Definitely my favorite work hour of the day. Liard Kintyre gives us $5. Long beyond wary of seeing mass faces, directional arrows, ceaseless sanitizing, news stories tallying new cases, life has been robbed of its joy. Can I tell you that I hate those arrows on the floor like the Pope hates the devil? I hate them with a passion. I'm not going to be told what to do by duct tape on the floor. I refuse to live my life that way. And if it weirds out people that I'm going the wrong way down the aisle, I don't care. I'm not walking all the way around to get cake mix. I'm going to reach in and grab it. I don't care.
Had you ever, I once said it was accidental. I wasn't trying to make a statement. I just forgot to look down and follow the arrows. But I drove up, if you can call it that, the wrong way of a one-way aisle. And man, I got this wild Karen that gave me the most vicious stink eye. She didn't say anything, but it was like, I felt like I was Typhoid Mary infecting her.
Oh, yeah.
Just
they like fling themselves up against the wall.
Yeah, that's so uncool, Sheila. That's so awful.
I'll give everybody my advice to avoid being molested when you're grocery shopping by an out-of-control Karen. Wear earbuds. Don't make eye contact. Wear earbuds. Walk confidently. And these people will leave you alone. If you have earbuds, for them, it's just too much work to even try to get your attention. Get an audio book. Listen to the Bible even. Who cares? But just put your earbuds in. They will leave you alone. I promise you. And if they give you a dirty look, who cares? It's a facial exercise for them. It's fine. But yeah, I'm not being told what to do by arrows on the floor. And as you're walking around, following these dumb arrows, I feel like a cattle going to get the bolt gun in my head at the abattoir. It's just like this way, then that way, then this way. And it's so mindless. I hate it with a passion.
Don't give them any idea, Sheila.
I hate it. And the smell of hand sanitizer. I don't know what happened. I don't know about Ontario, but in Alberta, in the early days of the pandemic, all of our breweries flipped to producing hand sanitizer. So everything smells like tequila. And I cannot drink tequila. I had a very bad experience with tequila once. And like you go into the store and it's like hand sanitizer, and it's like I just gag instantly because of the tequila smell. And it's a long story that I bet everybody would like to hear, but I'm not going to tell it.
I would like somebody who knows something about sanitizer to make a super chat, because I've been coming across, it's almost at, the hand sanitizers out there, Sheila, it's like maple syrup, in which it's at different grades, right? And there's one hand sanitizer, I'm trying to remember the retailer where I always come across it. You put it on and it's actually sticky.
We don't have that.
Oh no, I'm telling you, and folks, if you want to super chat in and tell me if you've had this experience, it feels the precise opposite of getting sanitized. It feels like you're getting something sticky and gross on your hands that you need to wash off. And I don't know what the root is of this particular type of sanitizer, but I've been coming across it lately, and I think the last time it was at the beer store, actually. I think that's where, here in Ontario, the brewers run a beer retail store, and I think that's where I've come across it. And it does not feel good. Maybe it works, and it's all psychological in my mind that it feels gross, but I don't like the feel of that.
We have this really watery hand sanitizer.
I've seen that.
You pump it out and it's like dumping a cup of water in your hand and leaking out the bottom. The floor's all wet when you walk into the store. Like there's a big sloshy, gross, muddy mess when you walk into a store because it's just this liquid hand, like literally watery hand sanitizer and you like pour, I swear to God, it's straight tequila. It has to be.
That's why we're saying to the hand sanitizer industry, Sheila and I are like two little Goldilocks girls. We don't want it too sticky. We don't want it too watery. We want it just right.
I don't want it at all. I'm tired of using it. My hands are really dry.
Sheila does not want it at all.
No, I'll take my chances with the germs. Jim Rat gives us $2. When is El Chapo joining you guys again? Oh, Andrew Chapados? I'm not sure. He's becoming a fan favorite. I know I'm a big fan. Yeah. Maybe we'll have him back on. Maybe we'll sub me out for Chapados.
Yeah, I really like Andrew. He gives me a tough time around the office. He likes to pose himself off as a tough guy. But other than that, we get along just fine. And he is a good talent. I love his commentaries. Yes,
he is a very thoughtful guy. Very thoughtful. Makes, it's funny because I'll read his stuff and I'm like, I wonder, you're thinking about the point that you would make, and then you keep reading, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, he made that point. Like nothing gets past him. It's really great.
It is good.
I don't see a name here, Justin, but somebody gave us $5 and says, your thoughts on the newest video by the National Council of Common Law Assemblies and Kevin Annett. I don't have any thoughts because I haven't seen it yet. But I'm currently writing it down so that I look at it after we're on air. Greg Jeffrey gives us $10. Overthrow the oligarchy in Parliament, get rid of Trudeau and the shadow communist regime. The only way we can do that is through an election. I have a feeling like an early one is coming, but I'm not sure. I mean, whatever. Let's see. Martin Sable gives us $20. So that joke of a PM claims no money for vets, but loves to ship tens of millions of dollars to help we and China. What is your view on Dougie Ford going to a wedding after preaching not to gather?
Sheila, it is staggering how tone deaf, our leaders, Justin Trudeau, Premier Ford, Mayor Tory, telling us to do things in terms of social distancing and masking up, and they violate it. And this is especially, I think, egregious of Doug Ford to have done that because we caught him with his hand in the cookie jar at Easter. Remember that? Don't go away for Easter. And he went away for Easter. And now, don't go to any gatherings. He goes to an MPP's wedding. So what is this? Why don't you guys just be honest with us? Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, now I get it, right? But if you're telling me to do something and then you break those very rules, your credibility is going down the toilet.
What about Mother's Day? Didn't he do the same thing on Mother's Day? He told everybody else, you can't see your mom, you can't see your grandma, just Zoom with your family or whatever. And then he has a Mother's Day get together. Maybe, yeah. You're ringing a bell there. But there's been so many, and John Tory himself posing with frontline workers on University Avenue, Hospital Row, all together for the group shot, and no one wearing a mask. John Tory going into Trinity Bellwoods when he was chastising young people for going there on a beautiful May weekend, suntanning, picnicking, tossing the frisbee around, the things you like to do in a park, especially when you've been cooped up for weeks because of this pandemic. And John Tory himself hobnobbing with groups with his mask covering his chin. I don't know, maybe John Tory has a double chin problem, and this was sort of a kind of a brassiere for his chin or something. But I mean, don't tell me how to live my life, and then you have absolutely no skin in the game when it comes to you leading by example. On the other hand, David, why should this pandemic be any different than every day in the life of a politician or an elitist? They're all hypocrites all the time. You think about Elizabeth May taking private jets and that gas guzzler of a car, and the Dodge Viper. The Dodge Viper, and David Suzuki with his pile of kids and his, long list of houses, his house in Australia, which to commute to it, you have to literally circumnavigate the earth. They're telling us how to live more, like the world is going to end if you burn any more carbon. And yet they live the most opulent lifestyle you could ever imagine, the most fossil fuel addicted lifestyle ever. It's all the same. It's all the same problem. The people in power want to tell us how to live, but none of these rules ever apply to them. And when they're caught, they just say, oh, well, maybe we'll just change the rules on this one thing so that I'm not the bad guy.
And Sheila, shame on us for forgetting the most flagrant hypocrite of all. I won't go into the inventory. It's been well discussed. I'll just give the website, sneakypatrickcom. Read all about the mayor of Brampton, who has hired a professional security company, Paladin, to serve as professional snitches for bylaw to alert them to give out those $880 tickets, who wants to fine homeowners $100,000. He wants to financially ruin them for having house parties. And yet this is the guy who signed into power on July 10th, I believe, the mandatory mask law. We catch red-handed going into a hockey rink when the city was still in stage 2 to play a little pickup hockey with his Barrie buddies. Most of the people on the ice, I understand, aren't even from Brampton. And of course, Patrick's maskless. So read all about it there. There's somebody, Sheila, that can't even spell the word shame.
Or, Justin Trudeau going to Quebec to spend the weekend with his family while telling everybody else to stay home, doing blackface while lecturing us about racism, firing women who stand up to him while telling us what a feminist he is. I mean, these people, they're all the same. They're all the same. Rules for the little guy, but the rules don't apply to them.
Sheila, you obviously experienced it differently.
I did. I'm just a silly little woman, and I lost my head. Mimi Jovanovic. Mimi, I'm sorry. I butchered it. $5. Are Canadians afraid to put pen to paper and write our elected officials our actual point of view about this fake plandemic CCP invasion? I think if you put pen to paper, or I guess fingers to keyboard and send an email, they'll get it. They just don't care. They just don't care. The only thing that matters is what happens on election day.
Yep.
Gary Sign gives us $20. Please don't stop the work. We definitely won't. And there's so much work. There's so much. I say it all the time. My biggest stress in a day is what story am I going to do? Not all the stories I want to do. How do I narrow it down to the one or two or whatever I'm working on? Unjust on Trudeau gives us $5. We is selling what they can and getting out of Dodge. Yes, before more is found out about their shenanigans. That's what I think. Mike Mayer. That's Mike from People vs. Predators. Says, thanks for being amazing, Rebel PvP. No, Mike, thank you for what you guys do. Long weekend in Alberta, and they were all over the province. They were in Edmonton, they were in Red Deer, they were back in Edmonton, hosting community barbecues, pamphleting, getting signatures, telling communities that there are these dangerous sexual offenders getting out, and it never stops. And I know, you guys, it's overwhelming. But I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart that as a parent, I appreciate the work that you're doing, because I guess police agencies are overwhelmed because there are so many of them. COVID is helping these people get out on bail. The legal system really doesn't have a place for communities in it, but you're doing your best to fix that. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work that People vs. Predators does.
Same goes for me, Mike. You and your colleagues are doing great work. And hey, why not consider an Ontario tour? I'd like to see you out here.
Yeah, you guys emptied out your jails too. So there's a lot of them. Georgie gives us $5. I'm probably overspending, but I'm just giving $5 for Sheila calling Toronto Mogadishu North. Haha, I'm from Toronto. It's true. I'm just saying it's a bit of a failed state, and it looks like there's warlords running around there. So whatever. Toronto, get your act together. Ezra made a good point today in the morning staff meeting. It's time for broken windows policing. Yep. Deal with the little stuff, and the big stuff is no longer acceptable.
100%.
Worked in New York, and Toronto always wanted to be a little bit like New York, didn't they? Kane Enmark gives us $2. I got my gun rights hoodie like Sheila's. So nice. Yeah, I'm wearing the T-shirt today. And the big rally is this weekend, Saturday in Ottawa.
Yes.
Unjust on Trudeau, $2. O'Toole is just liberal light. Well, I'm willing to be surprised. I'm You know, I'm at this point indifferent. I'm just happy Peter MacKay didn't win. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that something can be different. And maybe, just maybe, for once, the Conservative Party will learn from their mistakes. Great Escape, $5. Please let everyone know about the Integrity March this Saturday at 1 p.m. I believe I just did. Yeah. We need support for our law-abiding firearms owners. Yes. 1 p.m. in Ottawa. We'll have somebody there to make sure that the other side of the story is told, because I can't even imagine how the mainstream media is going to paint that event.
Yeah, you know what? That'll be a story unto itself. We should do that, Sheila. We should, assuming they even bother to show up, because that's the other way they, denounce certain rallies, is that they're beneath us, the cover. We won't even, send a cameraman out for B-roll footage. But those who do show up, I can already see the word redneck in the lead, and it'll just go downhill from there. So we're gonna pay attention to that.
Sexist, misogynist, white supremacist, redneck, extremist. I mean, you name it. That's what CBC is going to call these people.
100%.
And the march itself, it's being organized by the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, and one of the leads of that group is a woman.
Yeah.
So, but whatever. Don't let facts get in the way of a good CBC narrative. Wayne Swiddick, $10. Memo. DNC to team leaders. Hand out ballots, 10 or even more per address. Have them tell supporters to vote early and vote often, and mention the DNC will pick them up and deliver to the ballot box. There's a reason why Democrats are really pushing for this, ballot by mail as opposed to in person. With scrutiny. Ferris Bueller, $5. Sorry, go ahead.
By the way, I honestly believe that with the models I've been reading into about what's going to happen on November 3rd, the only way Trump doesn't win, and doesn't win by a landslide, I might add, is if this is not a fair game, if it's rigged. And that is indeed a fear. Believe me, folks, not just amongst those in the Democratic Party, but bureaucrats in certain Democrat states and municipalities and what have you that, could rig this. And we have to be super diligent this election, Sheila, because I wouldn't put anything past this particular incarnation of the Democrat Party.
On the flip side, nothing motivates a voter who feels that the win for Trump is safe, like the threat of a rigged election against him. So hopefully that threat of a rigged election sends people just pouring to the polls. Ferris Bueller gives us $5. Love your hair today, David. Very Rod Stewart. It's kind of Marco Sinkar.
Okay, I was driving with the windows down, okay?
Sheila, yours always looks great. Oh, thank you.
That's true.
Thank you, Rebel. I'm not so sure about that. It looks okay on camera, but in person it's not. Like the front is fine. Back here,
no, it's that wild yet controlled look, You'd pay a lot of money for that at a hair salon on Yorkville Avenue, let me tell you. Justin's getting nervous again.
Let's keep going.
Can't even talk about a hairdo these days,
Nope. Sneaky Beaver gives us $5. I have no idea what that stuff is, but in Quebec, yes, it's making my hands hurt. I have a weird skin reaction that to those hand sanitizers. I fake wash them. So you just go up and pretend to pump and then rub your hands together. I've seen people do that. James LeGros gives us $2. What's with the sissy sticker, David? Sissy sticker.
Is this on my thumb? There is a story. I can't say it now, so I'm just going to tease you, folks. And it's quite the story. It's quite the yarn, and that will be appearing. You'll find out all about this particular injury in the days ahead.
Yeah, it's really something else. Derek H, $6.99. I pray O'Toole is against the globalist agenda, unlike Trudeau, who's following his puppet master's plans to ruin Canada. MVP gives us $5. I love that Avi joined the rebel team. Yes. Canada and Australia are facing the same challenges, so joining forces makes sense.
It's even worse in Australia, Sheila. I would say in the free world, I haven't seen the level of abuse against basic human rights of a democracy, of people living in a Commonwealth nation, than what we're seeing in parts of Australia right now.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Phelim McAleer and his wife, Anne McElhaney. They are behind the Gosnell movie and the Lovebirds play, and they did the movie Frack Nation. It's really good conservatives. They also tell the other side of the story. They have also this amazing podcast where they actually read the trial transcript of the Harvey Weinstein trial.
Oh, wow.
And it will blow your mind. It'll change everything you thought you knew. Because the mainstream media coverage does not actually match up with what happened in trial. But anyways, moral of the story in that everybody's gross. But I'm off on a tangent here. But they were saying that the outrage from what's happening in Victoria, Australia, it's not really coming from the people who are living within Victoria. It's coming from the people outside that state. So the rest of Australia are looking at Victoria and saying, what are you doing to those people? What is happening in there? And the rest of the Western world, like us, we're looking at that and saying, that is the textbook definition of tyranny. But the people within it are sort of docile. They're kind of putting up with it. Except for, the some of the protests that are going on that Avi's covering, there's not a lot of resistance to what's happening. And that's very worrisome to me.
That is truly incredible, especially given the roots of Australia, how it became a nation. It wasn't from a bunch of docile sheep, that's for sure. And you know what? I can see that narrative in a certain sense, Sheila. We've talked about this. I can't tell you about the number of times I've seen a pedestrian by him or herself wearing a mask. I can't tell you the number of times when I'm commuting, somebody by themselves in their car with the windows rolled up, masked up, sometimes with the face shield on too. What the, and so to me, these are people that are all in, to use a poker term, and are not offended with the crackdown, but are actually cheering on the government that this is the right thing to do. And that's more terrifying than anything.
I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another. There's some of the true believing Karens. And I think the other people are looking at what's happening to the people who do speak out. A mom who is an hour away from her ultrasound appointment and gets put in handcuffs for a Facebook post. You see that and you think, I want none of that. I'll just wear a mask, stay in my house and shut up.
Yeah.
And when you see what happened to Avi, a journalist just trying to report on something, getting flattened by the cops, and you think, if they can do that to him on camera, imagine what they're going to do to me. So there's that the tyranny of fear acts as enforcement. And, then you have the neighbors who will narc you out, just like any good tyrannical state requires neighbor narcs. So that's, I think, a lot of what's happening in the state of Victoria. And it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But how do you help people who are so they're in it? Like there's very little resistance. How do you help them? I don't know. But I feel like somebody has to do something.
Oh, I would be so in jail right now if I was in Victoria.
Oh, we'd all be in jail. We'd have a whole cell block for rebels.
They'd throw away the key.
Yeah, they'd be building special prisons for us. Let's keep going because oh my goodness, we have 7 minutes left in the show and we've talked about literally one thing. Okay, and we didn't even go all that deep into it. Douglas Houle gives us $5. Review satanic practices. Require people to wear masks, stand 6 feet apart. You're being used in their occult. Wake up people. Lisa Proust. Sorry, I'm late. Remember, I love Rebel News. Thank you, Lisa. Derek G gives us $5. What is your estimation of the percentage rate of Canadians still supporting the COVID-19 state of emergency? David, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's just like what we said earlier. And I think and I'm not basing this on any hard data, just observational, what I see from day to day. It seems that the younger people are really in on this whole masking and social distancing and taking the Karen approach. And it's kind of counterintuitive in a way, isn't it, Sheila? You think of the young as being rebellious and, we're taking it to the man and, we're having a protest on campus. But for this pandemic, for whatever reason, and I'm still trying to connect the dots here, it seems like, the young people, it's kind of like, 1984, the anti-sex league, where you have children ratting out their parents to the government, right? And I'm not sure what's led to this dynamic. What are your thoughts on that, Sheila?
I think we live in two very different places. In Alberta, I think people are just especially in my small town, people are just over it. I mean, they tell you to wear a mask in Walmart. People are just walking in without one.
Oh, really?
People are like, oh, you want a mask? They're like, no, I'm exempt. And they just go in. And that's the end of it. You see some people in Edmonton, but that's self-explanatory, wearing masks in their cars. But I think outside of the socialist snake pit of Edmonton, things are pretty free, much to the chagrin of the mainstream media. Yesterday, and I don't think we'll get a chance to show the press conference, but Kean got a good question into Jason Kenney, and I know he's doing a story about that later today. But I watched the press conference because I knew Kean was on the call, and I was like, it's going to be good. So my mother-in-law and I were gathered around the computer watching the press conference, and this was a very historic day. A huge day. It was, the government is going into business, or basically backstopping a loan for 6 Indigenous bands who are going to build a gas plant west of Edmonton. Very exciting day. Huge wealth creator. It's going to create construction jobs and jobs after the fact and jobs upstream in oil and gas. And it's incredible, historic. We've got 6 chiefs. Some of them are standing there in regalia. The head of Treaty 6 is there too. Just a very historic day. And the journalists are, one after the other, refusing to ask questions about what's happening. This huge energy project that's going forward in partnership with these Indigenous bands. They're asking questions about, in BC, they've decided to close the nightclubs. When are you going to close them in Alberta?
Lord. And
Jason Kenney's like, well, I guess there's no news happening here today. He actually said that. Well, I guess there's no
Great
news.
line.
Yeah. And then he said, well, it doesn't matter what's happening in BC. We're taking a different approach. We're taking a more South Dakotan approach to what's happening here. And we don't think those sorts of lockdowns are necessary. So, but it's funny because the people feel one way, and thank God our government seems to feel at least in that direction. But the media, they're Karens with a newspaper column. They're like, wow, when are you going to lock these free people down? Give it some more, lock them up.
It's amazing. Not only is that news, what you just described with those chiefs being there, but this is good news. It's win-win for everyone. And yet, because it involves a good news spin on an energy project, the mainstream media has to either denounce it or ignore it. But if those chiefs were out on a rail line doing an illegal occupation, oh boy, get the live eye down here. This is really good stuff. They're taking it to the man here. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. And really what this mainstream media wants to do is perpetuate misery on the reserves, I think, Sheila, instead of getting these reserves into functioning, wonderful and wealth-creating communities.
Well, my mother-in-law goes, look at those racists in the mainstream media. We got 6 Indigenous leaders who want economic independence, and these journalists don't think that's newsworthy. And it's true. It's true that, these chiefs want something better, but because that better comes through capitalism and oil and gas, we can't cover it. We have to ask different questions about another province during this historic moment. It's gross. It was really gross.
Our money is funding these ideological trained seals in the media, Sheila. I still can't get around that,
I know. It's so gross. We have 1 minute left in the show and we have to finish these super chats.
Okay.
Where did the hour go? Pink Phoenix Nails, $1.49. I don't see a super chat, but thank you very much. A Southby gives us $5. I don't mind leaders not wearing masks. Masks don't work and they know it. I just don't appreciate one law for me, one law for thee. Exactly. wear a mask, don't wear a mask, I don't care, but don't give me a fine because I'm not wearing one when you're not. Vito Anthony D, $2. Can I get an apolitical cheer for the Raptors? Not for me. I'm over professional sports after everybody's Black Lives Matter baloney. I'm over professional sports with the exclusion of, I guess, MMA, who are like, they want no part of any of this like nonsense. They're pretty Trumpy sport anyway, though.
Yeah, I want an explanation for professional sports, if we can possibly get one, Sheila, because right now I'm totally tuned out. And and it's this. When you have players wearing Black Lives Matter on their jerseys instead of their surname, when you have Black Lives Matter painted on buses like the Raptors have and on the courts, are you talking about the life of a black man or woman that matters, which anyone who's reasonable agrees with? Or is this your show of solidarity to a Marxist anarchist organization that is exploiting useful idiots to get their message across? I don't have clarity. I don't know what they mean by that. Because if it is that, if you are endorsing this political movement, I will keep my money in my wallet and you just play your games. I'm not tuning in. You're not getting my eyeballs anymore. You're not getting my money spent on merch or, well, I was going to say tickets. I got to check my lottery numbers to see if I can actually go to a game in person. You have totally turned me off.
I got a real tough time taking Black Lives Matter advice from people with Nike sponsorships. And I'll tell you why. Because Nike has been identified as one of several companies that has Uyghur slave labor in their supply chain.
Wow.
And so when you are walking around wearing a Black Lives Matter jersey and you're playing in the NBA and you're taking that sweet, sweet Nike cash, you're complicit in the slavery and oppression and death and torture of millions of Uyghurs. And so, you know what? I'll take no lectures from these people.
No, and you know what? The hypocrisy, Sheila, these are billionaire owners of the NBA teams.
Privileged.
Multi-millionaire. And in fact, I think LeBron James, I think he is a billionaire. I think he's worth $1 billion. And they go out and they're talking about taking it to them. Do you think they live in these communities that are on fire, folks? Do you and I'm including when you have mom and pa, Black-owned businesses being burned to the ground by rioters. Do you think they have any skin in that game? No. They're in gated, guarded communities. They're totally detached from that. It makes me sick to see that narrative. Just play sports, for goodness sakes.
David, we're 2 minutes over.
Okay, I'll shut up.
And I think we're all caught up on the super chat.
Oh, all right then. Well, listen, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Justin, our producer, my lovely co-host, Sheila, the she-devil gun Reed, and a special thank you to all the super chatters. We really do depend on your donations to keep the lights on and to bring you the other side of the story. So until next Tuesday, that's when Sheila and I will be back in the saddle. Ezra will be here tomorrow on Friday. Have a great day and stay safe.